Welcome back to the Holosky Podcast Listener Experience. We are your hosts. I'm Steven.
And Kyle.
And it's Thursday, Holocult. You know what that means. Almost to the weekend, almost through the work week. We got another listener experience here for you today. Excited to dive right into it. But before we do that, we got to get through the business. So make sure you tune in Mondays for our regular show, Tuesday for our night shift recap, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central on YouTube for the Night Shift live call-in show, and this show right here on Thursdays. Check us out at all our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Discord, Reddit. Search up the Holosky Podcast. We will be there. Come, be part of the community. Join the Holocult. It's just the right thing to do. If you have a paranormal experience you'd like for us to feature on a future show, Kyle's got some information that you're going to want.
I do have that information, and that information is going to be, you can send your story to us in any way, shape, or form to the email, and that email is going to be holoskypodcast@gmail.com. You can also call or text the holophone 618-556-0837. Any way that you can get us your story would be greatly appreciated. The best way to do it is definitely through the email. Makes it a lot easier for us to put it in categories and organize it. That way we don't lose it. We've gotten a little bit better at that stuff. So that's definitely preferred way number one. But any of them is great. And we will always and forever appreciate each and every one of you for sending your experiences over.
Absolutely. If you'd like to support the show, there's plenty of ways you can do it. We have the Patreon up and running. $7 tier, all the extra episodes we put out, ad-free shows, coupons for the merch store whenever we get that put together, all kinds of stuff there. Extra little tidbits that we post, like old news articles and weird government articles we throw up over there that don't hit our regular social medias. We also have a web store at holoskypodcast.com. You can check out some of our merch if you're interested and rep the Holocult with some dope swag, as the kids like to say it. We have a Venmo if you'd like to throw some pocket change in. We appreciate. Best thing you can do is share the show word of mouth. Share it, share it, share it. The wider the audience, the more chance we have to release more content, do new things, get out and about. You know how this whole thing works. Any help we can get, we appreciate. With that being said, we're going to dive right in because this one's kind of a long one today. Today's listener experience comes to us from our friend Nate. It's titled Near-Death Experience and the Pigman, which is coming in a little hot.
The Pigman sounds no bueno.
No, I
don't think I'm a fan of that guy.
No, we'll see. We'll see what his intentions are here.
Unless he's got a lot of bacon, then we might be able to be friends.
Yeah, bacon's
pretty cool.
But our friend Nate says, "Hey guys, my name's Nate. I recently stumbled upon your podcast while listening to your Egress episode on Tinfoil Hat and haven't stopped listening to Holosky since. This is the podcast I've been searching for. You guys are the shit. Keep it up." Thanks, Nate. I don't really know where to begin, but I have a lot of weird stories to share about shit that's happened to both me and my wife throughout our lives. For some reason, I've always gravitated toward the weird and unknown mysteries and glitches in the simulation some call reality. I apologize if this seems kind of rambly, turns into a novel. I didn't call in because I knew it'd just be a mess with me rambling on, but just bear with me, shit gets weird. As far as I can personally remember, it all started on a beautiful summer day in northern Minnesota when I was about 6 to 7 years old. I was on a trip up the north shore of Lake Superior with my mom and dad and my older brother Ryan, who was about 10 years old at the time. We ended up stopping at a secluded rocky beach for lunch. Superior is as cold as shit all year round, so we weren't really doing much swimming. The beach itself is made up of pebbles with larger rocks and boulders close to the shore. I remember the van being parked up the road, maybe 100 yards away. There was a sketchy, rocky trail you had to walk down to get to the beach. I recall my mom and dad going up to the van, quickly grabbing some things and leaving me and Ryan at the beach for just a minute. Before they went to the van, they specifically told us not to jump on the boulders near the shore because they would be slippery and we could get hurt. Well, being a typical 6-year-old boy, I decided it was a good idea to jump on one of the boulders. It was only a couple feet into the water, and I thought I could easily make the jump. As it turns out, that boulder itself was really slippery and covered in green algae, so naturally I fell right into the lake. At first, I thought I was fine and tried to doggy paddle my way out. I wasn't a strong swimmer, but the harder I tried, the further I got dragged out into the lake. I was trapped in an undertow or rip current. I remember panicking and struggling to make my way back to shore. I looked down and I saw that I was in a huge drop off, which to me looked at least 20 feet deep. The water was dark and freezing cold. I remember seeing a little rocky ledge that I was going to try to step on in the water, but it had a broken beer bottle on it, and I didn't know if it would do me any good or not. I remember looking behind me and I saw this huge ship about a mile or two out and contemplated trying to swimming to it. But I was struggling to tread water, and then everything went black. I thought I was dead. It was almost like a deep sleep, but one without a dream. It was just black and dark, and the next thing I know, I'm fluttering my eyelids and waking up on the beach with my mom and dad and brother around me. I guess my brother had come to my rescue. He laid down on a rock on his belly in the water and grabbed my hand, hooked it into the waist of his swim trunks, and just held me out of the water until my dad came and lifted us both out. I remember feeling really weird after that. I just didn't feel right. Maybe because I'd almost just died and my adrenaline was pumping, or maybe I did die and somehow just switched timelines or something. All I know is ever since that day, I've had quite a lot of weird things happen to me, including having night terrors regularly as a kid. We just moved into a house not long prior to that, and a lot of strange instances have occurred since then. I'm the only one who slept on the main floor while everyone else was upstairs. My room was right near the basement doorway, which was really creepy. There's a weird room in the basement that nobody ever goes in. There's a hole in the wall that my dad covered with a piece of cardboard that opens up into a whole nother room that I've always been too scared to explore. So I don't know what's in there. The hole itself isn't too big. Maybe I could just fit through it. Fast forward about 6 years to '09. I was 13 and my father passed away from pancreatic cancer. That was the darkest time of my life. My mom took it really bad. She actually got hit by a car soon after he passed, and after she recovered, she wasn't ever home. She was always out drinking with friends and stumbling home around 4 a.m. My brother at this point really wasn't around. He was a freshman in college and lived with his roommates, so I was on my own a lot at 13. Needless to say, I was very depressed, wasn't doing very good in school. I started smoking long bottom leaf a lot and always had an eerie feeling about the house, especially my bedroom. I was usually home alone. I refused to sleep in my room for long periods of time and instead would sleep on the couch in the living room. Fast forward 3 years. I was 16 and met Kayla, my wife, and the love of my life. Kayla also had a near death experience when she was about a year old. She had pneumonia and spent a lot of time in the hospital. They didn't think she was going to make it. Miraculously, she pulled through and recovered. Soon afterwards, she was about 2 years old. She was in her crib, and her grandma Debbie was babysitting. Well, she started yelling for her grandma, pointed to her closet, and stated that she saw a guardian angel, and that the angel was protecting her. Kayla's grandma Debbie is very spiritual, and it was enough to freak her out a little bit. Fast forward a few months, and Kayla's great grandpa Jay passes away. Jay was Grandma Debbie's stepdad. Soon after the funeral, I'm assuming either that day or within days of the funeral, Kayla tells Grandma Debbie that she saw Great Grandpa Jay sitting in his rocking chair. He was translucent/white, wearing the suit he was buried in. This was Grandpa Jay's house, not the same house that she saw the angel. This was enough to really freak. Yeah, not the same house she saw the angel. This was enough to really freak Debbie out. The interesting thing is Kayla didn't remember this particular time she saw her grandpa. This is what Debbie told Kayla that she said she saw. Kayla ended up seeing her grandpa another time, this time at her house. She woke up in the middle of the night and saw what she thought was her stepdad standing in the hallway of her bedroom. She called to her stepdad, Chris, and Chris didn't answer. She called again, this time yelling for Chris and her mom. No answer. Kayla at this point was scared and went under her covers because she thought it was an intruder. She forced herself to sleep. Kayla recalls the figures wearing the same suit that Grandpa Jay had worn, and it looked just like him. This is where shit gets weird. One day when Grandma Debbie was babysitting Kayla, Kayla was playing in her grandma's basement, which is the same house she saw the guardian angel. And Debbie hears Kayla talking to someone. When asked who she was talking to, Kayla said she was playing with the pig man. Now, this really scared Grandma Debbie. Kayla doesn't remember anything about the pig man, whether it was a legit pig man or a man who had facial features that kind of resembled a pig. We don't know. Whether it had malicious intent or not, we also don't know. Again, this is Kayla's Grandma Debbie recounting what Kayla had said. Debbie never saw the pig man herself, the guardian angel, or the ghost of Grandpa Jay. I need to reach out to Debbie to ask her more about it. All I know, it was enough to really frighten and worry Debbie, and Kayla doesn't like pigs very much. I don't know if you guys have heard of a pig man or know anything about pig man, but I think this is after this I'm going to dive down that rabbit hole. Kayla hasn't seen her Grandpa Jay, the angel, or the pig man since. However, she did have some weird shit happen at my mom's house, which is where I had night terrors and weird shit happened to me. One day, I was taking a shower and Kayla was in my room. She was sitting on my bed, and a good chunk of her hair got pulled, like straight up into the air. She said she almost pissed herself. Pulling her hair back down, and her hair again was pulled straight up. She ran out of my room freaking out and told me what had happened. I've also been grabbed on the thigh while laying on the same bed. And again, I was unable to sleep in my room for months at a time, well before I even met Kayla. I legit had tons of night terrors over the years, woke up screaming, crying, turned all the lights on, got to the point where I had to sleep with my dog, or crucifix, or Bible, and I'm not a very religious person at all. One time when I was talking to Kayla on the phone in my room, I heard a man yell my name. I heard it as clear as day, Nathan, which is weird because nobody calls me Nathan other than my mom, my dad, my brothers. I figured it was either my mom's boyfriend Gary, who was upstairs, or my cousin Nick, who was staying with us in the basement. When I asked both of them what was up, neither said that they had called for me. Speaking of my cousin Nick, he had been staying at my mom's for a while in the family basement. Speaking of my cousin Nick, he had been staying at my mom's for a while in the family room in the basement. One day we were chilling in his room, smoking a bong and watching The Walking Dead. All of a sudden he freaks out, looks at me all crazy and said, "What the fuck? Did you just touch me?" And I was like, "No, I'm several feet away." Nick lifts his shirt up and there's a legit handprint on his side. Nick then tells me it wasn't the first time this had happened to him. He was once sleeping on his couch in the basement and woke up to being scratched on the side as well. His sister Beth also stayed with us for a period of time and told me that the place was haunted. My other brother Hunter, who's never lived with us, also said that he saw a kid out of the corner of his eye near the basement doorway a few times, and that he just tried to ignore whatever he saw. So multiple people have legit had weird and crazy shit happen to them in my house. My mom still lives there, but we don't talk, and I haven't been there in a long time. I kind of want to explore that weird room in the basement that nobody goes in and sees, just to see what's going on in there. Maybe there's something connected to it. Maybe it's also a ghost of my dad who passed away, or other spirits. Maybe I really died in Lake Superior, and Kayla also died in the hospital, and we just switched timelines where we somehow met. It's a lot to speculate. All I know is that everything changed after I almost died in that lake. Kayla and I have also seen UFOs, like straight the fuck up at our old house in Minnesota. We were outside looking at the stars one night, and all of a sudden we see 3 fireballs in the sky. They look like they swooped down through the atmosphere. They just went across the sky. You could see 3 disc-shaped objects, bright orange and red. Then they shot across the sky and disappeared. Since then, Kayla and I have had really weird and vivid dreams. Kayla had a dream not long after our UFO experience where she woke up, and I was being lifted out of bed by a bright light. The roof of our house had completely disappeared. I was being lifted up, and Kayla grabbed onto my legs to try to pull me down, but was drug up with me onto an operating table with floating metal instruments and medical equipment. Kayla closed her eyes and forced herself back to sleep. She said it was the scariest shit she'd ever experienced and believes we were abducted. I also had a dream I was abducted and had something implanted into my nose, and then I started having issues with my breathing, my sinuses and stuff. It was weird. I have other weird stories that I could talk about, but like I said in the beginning, this is turning into a novel and I apologize. I just wanted to get this shit off my chest. I could go on and on about weird shit all day. If you've made it this far, let me know what you think about the whole near-death experience thing, because I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Let me know if you have any questions. Keep doing what you do, and thanks for your time. You guys are the shit. Thanks again, Nate. Nate, my friend, thank you so much for taking the time to send us in some of your experiences. A lot to unpack here. The near-death experience immediately kind of, once you mentioned it, made me think of quantum immortality, especially when you started saying that you felt different when you were essentially revived out of the water. For those who don't know what quantum immortality is, it's essentially that we never die. Once we get in a lifeline and we get to a point to where something tragic, an accident happens or something, instead of dying, we just switch timelines where we die in the original timeline, but then we switch to a new one and we continue living where we left off. We essentially survive the encounter by swapping timelines, but we perish in that timeline. Lot to wrap up there. But it's hard to tell, especially when they're in an experience like that where you're dealing with so much trauma, how the adrenaline in your body and how the endorphins in your brain and how all that those things like affect the way you feel and how you think. So it's hard to pin that down. But I definitely got some quantum immortality vibes when you had mentioned that.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know exactly what happened to you. However, by sitting here and listening to it, you struck on like one of my deepest fears, and that whole section just gave me anxiety out of this world. Like I could visualize everything in your story, especially when like it wasn't so bad until you were like, yeah, I was getting pulled out, and then I'm like, oh man, that's not good. And then you're like, and then I looked down and I saw a 20-foot drop, and I'm like, nope, my brain can't handle this right now. My anxiety is skyrocketing. That story made me ultra uncomfortable, but it does sound like to some degree, and it's weird. It's weird that all of a sudden you blacked out. There was no like explanation. You didn't go underwater to your knowledge. Uh, so is that a trauma response? Is that your brain cutting things off to better you? You know, and it seems like your brother did you a massive solid by coming out there to help you. And then your father, you know, basically coming out and getting both of you. It's just weird. The logic, like I understand you were really young, because it just seemed like bizarre logic when you're like, yeah, I saw a boat a mile out and I thought about swimming into it.
It's just like a fear response. Like you
Yeah.
feel like you're not going to be able to make it back to land because you're getting pulled out. Well, maybe my next best thing probably is like to swim out to the ship.
Right. But you were still close enough for your brother to reach off the
Yeah.
rock and grab you.
Yeah.
But your brain was firing on such a high, like, survival level.
Anything to get on
Yeah,
solid
it was just,
ground.
yes, exactly. Your brain just trying to process.
From there, it seems like the story goes two different directions, but kind of all conglomerates around you. So the incidents you have in your home feel like it's easily geographically connected to that home, because your incidents, your brother's incidents, even some of Kayla's incidents all happen right there, even the UFO stuff. But I feel like Kayla, she has to have some sort of like some sort of connection with the spiritual realm, because she had all these experiences, seeing her dead grandfather, seeing the guardian angel, seeing whatever this pigment entity is outside of your home. But when she gets into your home, it kind of ramps up a little bit. So I feel like there's two separate things there. Definitely curious about whatever the creepy secret room in the basement is. That doesn't feel cool at all. And
No, could be an explanation as to what the hell is going on in the house.
Yeah, especially since they covered it up. The dad's like, nah, you don't want to fuck with that.
Yeah, it definitely has sus written all over it.
Yeah. And the UFO thing, man, that might be that might be paramount to all of your issues right off the rip, because we stumble across a lot of experiences that the paranormal, like poltergeist activity or whatever, have direct links with UFOs. My dogs clearly are also aliens. If you guys can hear that, they are
They
freaking out.
definitely are aliens.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's something. I mean, I don't know. I am curious about the creepy extra room. And I'm wondering if, like, I don't know when you sent this in, Nate, because, like I said, I pulled a whole bunch out of the email and kind of sent them over to this file. I'm curious as to what some more of your experiences are, and if they all happened around the house, if they all centered around that house, because it seems like the only person who's really didn't was Kayla's, but they did
Right.
ramp up when she was there.
Yeah, it could, like you said, it could be tied to the geographical location whenever you had that incident, which I kind of feel like you might feel this way. Maybe whatever happened to you that day made you more in tune with the supernatural.
Yeah, you hear that too.
Yeah.
You do hear that. It
You know,
easily
whether
could, yeah.
you're in tune or you became a beacon, I don't know. I have no idea, but I kind of feel like with the way you worded the story, that might be something you're rolling around in your brain.
And I feel like I've talked about it a lot before, I feel like death, near death, essentially is that weird place in the human, one of those weird places in the human consciousness that, like, the veil is different, you know, like when people meditate, when people lucid dream, when people take hallucinogens, near death experiences. I feel like that opens up doorways in the human consciousness that are normally closed when we're not in those specific uh, predicaments, I guess. So it definitely, like Kyle said, could have cracked a doorway there where it ramps up a lot of the shit that you're experiencing. I don't know.
I
Some weird
agree.
stuff. But if you do hear this, if you're still listening to the show, if this was a long time ago, we definitely would want to hear some more, if for nothing else, just to see if it's like a geographical connection to the home, because it feels like there is something super heavy going on there. And I feel like Kayla's in tune with the paranormal a lot more than she's probably letting on. And it's almost weird. It's almost like maybe she was sent to you as, like, kind of this anchor to help you deal with this and process this. I mean, like, she was the one trying to keep you from being pulled out of your ceiling. If she wasn't there, I mean, we don't know how bad it got, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a terrifying thought process too. Like, I couldn't imagine looking up and seeing the ceiling gone and then your spouse is floating up and away. That's not, or your, person in the same room with you is floating away.
Yeah, what was that?
What
Was
the
it
fuck?
Stardust?
Yeah. 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 That's what I was envisioning when I said that too, whenever I said your spouse, because that happened to John's wife. She was being abducted and he ran out there after her. And I believe, if I remember correctly, which would be essentially in the same thing here, the same vein, she was even like phasing through walls and shit.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy. And that would just it'd be an ultra terrifying experience. And for everybody's sake, hopefully it was just a dream.
Yeah,
Hopefully it wasn't reality.
for sure.
But it's pretty detailed, and the way you made it sound very vivid for a dream.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hope, like I said, I hope that it was just a dream. I hope it was nothing more than that. If not, then it was definitely a botched abduction.
It's creepy. I know that much.
Very.
But yeah. Again, if you get this, if you hear this, Nate, send us some more in. I'm curious to see where this all stems from. If anybody else, any of the other members of the Holocult having paranormal experience, unexplained experience, that they would like to share, dealt with some weird government officials, anything you want to throw out there, hit us up. You know the drill. But until then, till we meet again, thanks for hanging out with us today. Stay safe, stay weird, and if you're in a relationship and your partner's getting pulled through the ceiling by a UFO, do what you can to stop them.